Welcome to our January 21st Committee of the Whole meeting, which I will now call to order. Are there any declarations of interest from members of council? I declare an interest on item E2 as it is in reference to the second concession and a property I had previously ownership of. When we get to this item on the agenda, based on the acting mayor rotation, I will pass the chair to Councillor Carruthers and will vacate my seat for the duration of the deputation. I will now share our land acknowledgement statement. The town of East Gwillimbury recognizes and acknowledges the lands originally used and occupied by the First Peoples of the Williams Treaty First Nations and other Indigenous peoples, and on behalf of council, I thank them for sharing this land. We also acknowledge the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation as East Gwillimbury's closest First Nation community and recognize the unique relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and the waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and we join them in these responsibilities. Item D is community announcements. It is with profound sadness that I share the passing of Bill Potts on January 14th. Bill, with his wife Ann, moved to Queensville in 1969 and made their East Gwillimbury home where they raised their 4 children. Throughout his 56 years in our community, Bill gave much of his time to volunteering for activities, and I know through the years he touched many lives and was well respected. Bill volunteered in many areas, including the Santa Claus Parade. He was an important part of the North Union Community Group, and he will be fondly remembered for his efforts and his successes in establishing the East Gwillimbury 55 and Up Club. Bill advocated for our seniors, sharing his concern and compassion for their well-being. Bill had an understanding that activities were needed and a meeting place was needed even more, and Bill worked tirelessly to make it happen. Bill was the president up to last year. Bill will be missed by many. I extend our condolences to Ann, their children, and all who knew and loved him. Are there any announcements from members of council? Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've again captained Team EG for the Coldest Night of the Year walk in support of Blue Door Shelters. This will take place on February the 22nd. I believe what we'll do is walk locally. We won't take part in the Richmond Hill end of the walk. Probably maybe around the Nokita Trail in that area. So an email has gone out to all of our staff looking for support. We are currently, I think I looked this morning, or it was this morning I looked, I think we're around $3,000. There's been some generous donations from some employees, some members of mayor and council, and a couple of members of our development community. So that's greatly appreciated. So we can certainly look for more support when that one comes by. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Lahey, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, through you, Madam Mayor. Well, I'm excited to share with everyone that the Lunar New Year will be celebrated this Sunday afternoon between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. at the Mount Albert Lions Community Centre. And there will be music and festivities and crafts for children, and it's going to be a great party. So that's taking place this Sunday, the Lunar New Year, at the Mount Albert Lions Community Centre between 1 and 4 p.m. And we hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor, go ahead, please.
I've got 3 items that I wanted to bring forward today. I just, the first thing is that to folks in our community who don't identify their gender, male or female, I just want to say that I see you, you are respected, and you are loved, and that every right and freedom that is afforded to every other individual in this community, it is afforded to you too. So I just want to say that. Secondly, I wanted to give thanks to Mr. Molinari's department. We had some residents come forward, parents and teachers regarding traffic concerns and safety on Murrell, where the new Sharon Public School is located, along with the other school that's across the street. And so two schools run both right in one area. We brought forward the concerns, and the department was on it right away. Staff came out, working with teachers, working with the public, and then engaging the school boards as well. And honestly, through the whole process that I was kept apprised of it, it was just very impressive, and I just wanted to say thanks, because the attention to detail was much appreciated, and the community's better off for it, so thank you. And then the last thing, I serve on the, hopefully this will be the last time I say this in this way, I serve on the Sharon Temple as a liaison, and today is the first day after years of work and much work ahead. The Sharon Temple is now referred to as the Sharon Museum and Gardens, and that is a reflection upon the opportunity to kind of bring forward it to the community in a more open way, to ensure that people can really enjoy what the Sharon Museum and Gardens is all about now, but also in the future. And it is sincerely my hope that one day it'll be, the grounds will be free and open to everyone, and especially as we look forward to the Civic Center precinct lands that, and the opportunities that are, we can look forward to there. It would be great to be able to have that connectivity between that, the Sharon Museum and Gardens, and then the park that's further south for people to enjoy. So I just wanted to share that with everybody in the community, because it's an exciting thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other items from members of council? I'm not seeing any at this time. We will move along to items on our agenda. Items E, moving to deputations. P, Jain, on behalf of Land Services Group, making a deputation to committee regarding the development project known as Holland Park. Welcome. Good to have you with us.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I know it says P. Jain, but I'm Nick Pileggi. I'm a planner with Macaulay Schilmihausen. Parish Jain is also here. He's the architect on the project, and he'll be helping me with the presentation as well. So yeah, we're here today to talk to you about the Holland Park project, which is at 19349 to 19399 Yonge Street. If I could go to the next slide, Pete, please. So we're here today representing Land Services Group, or LSG, who are a York Region-based real estate development and property management company. They're excited to be a part of the East Gwillimbury development community, and now have two properties, the second one, which is part of our second deputation, that obviously we want to just present to council, look at increasing the profile here, and we're very excited about these two projects and wanted to have this opportunity, so we thank you for that. So the purpose of our deputation today is really to reintroduce Holland Park to you. I'm new to the project, and then introduce the Riverview project as part of our second deputation. If I could go to the next slide, please. So as I said, the property is located at 19349 to 19399 Yonge Street. It's on the east side of Yonge Street and just south of Thompson Drive in Holland Landing. The site is designated as part of the village core area in the Town of East Gwillimbury official plan. These are areas that are intended for growth. They can provide greater densities and a broader mix of land uses. In this case, obviously, the site is very centrally located in the Holland Landing and Yonge Street core area. We have a brief video that I'm wondering if the clerk can assist by putting that up now, and we'll play that for council. The clerk can assist by putting that up now, and we'll play that for council. Thanks. And if we could just get the slide presentation. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. So this is the site plan for the Holland Park development. It includes a number of elements. So there's a mixed-use component to the proposal immediately. So north is actually on the left here. So Yonge Street is at the bottom of the screen and Thompson Drive's at the top, with north being on the left-hand side. So right at the north corner is a mixed-use commercial and residential building with 1,500 square feet of commercial and 15 apartment units. That's a 5-story building. The overall total here on the proposal is 103 total residential units, with the other 88 units being back-to-back stacked townhouses, which are 4 stories tall. There's one level of underground parking pretty much under the entirety of the site, with 132 parking spaces for the entire development and 39 bicycle parking spaces. If I could just go to the next slide, please. So what we wanted to talk to council a little bit about was a proposed breakdown and phasing of the site. So what you can see along Yonge Street is our proposed phase 1. That includes everything in red. The development along Yonge Street, which would include the commercial and apartment building, the 5-story building with the commercial uses at grade, and about 40 of the back-to-back stacked townhouses. And that would leave the remaining 48 units at the back of the site for the phase 2. So I'm going to pass it to Prish, who will take you through just some of the renderings, and then I'll just come back to conclude really quickly.
Welcome, good to have you with us today.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members, and Nick. My name is Prish Jain. I'm the principal of TACT Architecture. We are a predominantly residential architectural firm in the GTA and Ottawa. We were also brought on to the site to reimagine the site since you may have last seen it. I'm going to very briefly talk about the architecture. I'm not going to repeat a lot what Nick has mentioned. But I'm going to talk about how the 5-story building at the corner is a mixed-use building. It has a significant setback from the north, 10.75 meters, allowing for an animated grade, cafes, outdoor seating. The residential lobby also located at grade, immediately adjacent to the retail, again allowing for the animation of the sidewalk and the patio area just to the north of the building. The back-to-back townhouses, which further are on the south side, you can see them here in the images. These are townhouses. All the doors are at grade. They are wood, concrete, brick and stone construction. Their speed of construction would not be unlike any typical residential home. And in phase 1, we're proposing that the entirety of the Yonge Street facade be comprised of 3 buildings, the 2 residential, and then the 1 mixed use at the corner. The second phase would be additional townhomes at the back of the site. We imagine this site to be as green as possible, very little surface parking, and the predominant parking is located below grade. The Phase 1 also, and this is my last point, Phase 1 also allows for the completion of the Yonge Street facade. So while the Phase 2 would be remaining and be at the rear of the site, Phase 1 would finish or complete the residential and mixed-use portion along Yonge Street. I could talk for a long time, but I think that's all I need to say. Thank you.
And thanks. If I could just go to the last slide. So thanks again. Holland Park does represent, we think, a unique opportunity to deliver a new and innovative product to East Gwillimbury. You would have seen in the video there is a range of everything from 1-bedroom to 3-bedroom units, with the majority of the units being 2-bedroom stacked townhouse units. Those would deliver certainly a more attainable product, certainly a more affordable product, not necessarily affordable housing, but a more affordable product than you see in East Gwillimbury market that's dominated largely by ground-related units of $1 million plus. We think that also aligns with council's priorities related to more diversified housing stock and contributes to attainability. So we look forward to continued collaboration both with staff and council, and thank you again for your time today.
Thank you. Questions? Are there any heritage buildings, houses that are within that area now moving forward?
I think there is one building that had been listed, but I believe when it was reviewed, it's not proposed to be maintained or retained on the site, so it's proposed to be removed.
Thank you. Councillor Carruthers, go ahead, please.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to thank you for listening to the residents and getting rid of that exit onto Thompson that was identified as being very problematic for residents, as well as increasing the setbacks. I think that makes a big difference. I have 3 questions. One is the timing of phase 2. How much behind phase 1 would phase 2 be? Because I would imagine it's going to be very disruptive to the people living there to have buildings going on in the back.
Yeah, so through you, Madam Mayor, realistically, we would love to build it all at once if we could. I think the phasing idea is one of, understanding the challenges that East Gwillimbury faces from an allocation perspective, and, we'd certainly love to get into discussions with staff and council about a way to deliver phase 1 quickly. I think phase 2, if it were to rely on, let's say, the first tranche of the new YDSS twinning and extension there, would be in that timeframe, 2027, 2028. In terms of the disruption related to construction, so the likelihood is we would have to build the underground parking for the entire development, so that there would be some disruption early on when the whole site is under construction, but we would hope, I guess, for the second phase that it would be a lot quicker, because you're not building the underground garage for that. It would just be to put the units up, and like Prish said, if it typically takes 4 to 6 months to build a single-family detached home, you could likely build these units in that same amount of time. So, and without the need to build the underground garage, if it's already built, then that time frame would be shrunk, hopefully.
Thank you. 2 more questions. One, you mentioned the mid-rise apartment units. When I hear apartment, I think purpose-built rental. Are these rentals or are these condominium units?
I don't, sorry again, through you, Madam Mayor. I don't know that we've determined 100% at this point. It is a small building. There's 15 units. So frankly, there's challenges both from a rental and a condo perspective. But as part of the larger development, it probably makes more sense to be all part of one condominium corporation. But I don't know that we've determined 100% the tenure of that building.
Okay. We're sorely lacking apartments, so that would be a good addition to our community. And you mentioned that the doors are at grade, but I'm seeing steps. So I just wanted to get some
Maybe I'll let
confirmation on that.
Sure, thank you. What I mean by doors at grade, meaning that there's no common space that the units are accessed by.
Got it.
So while there are steps going up to your front door, all the front doors are not accessed from a corridor or any common space.
Okay, thank you. That's an improvement on the last plan that we saw. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Foster, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of things that I'd like to mention. I still don't think you have enough parking, but that's been one of my issues with just about every development that we do. So I'm not sure that you can squeeze any more, but have that on the top of mind if you can. I think that, I don't want to speak for Councillor Carruthers, but I think she'll agree with me that, the public meetings that we had about this development were a little contentious. So I think we need to make sure that everything is being done for the residents that are around there, especially the ones on Thompson Drive and Yonge Street that are very, very close to the development. So I hope that you're going to try to keep those people involved in what's going on, so at least they know what to expect and what's going to happen next. The second thing that I wanted to mention, I think in the very first meeting that we had up in the council boardroom upstairs here about this development, I'm not even sure if we had seen the plans on the development at that time, but I mentioned that whatever was done here needed to be very sympathetic to the fact that this was on Yonge Street, over 200 years old Yonge Street, less than probably 2 kilometers away from the original northern terminus of Yonge Street, and I'm talking about 1795 or something like that. And at the time, I said that I wanted to see something in this development that was sympathetic to that fact. I was asked at the time by one of the gentlemen, I'm not sure who it was, what did I want to see? And I think my answer was probably easy on my part at that time, was that I wasn't sure what I wanted to see, but I was going to leave it with your group to kind of knock our socks off and show us something that was a little bit different and, again, sympathetic. So is there any update on that? And I'm not looking for a rock-solid answer right now, but I just, again, I want to keep that at top of mind, that it's a rather historic spot. It doesn't look that fabulous and historic right now, but again, that northern terminus of Yonge Street is like 2 baseball throws up the street. So I think something needs to be done for that.
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor. So I think that's something certainly we can take back. I know Prish and I are newer to the file, so I certainly didn't have the context of that discussion. I understand the idea of a more traditional, perhaps, look to the development. I know there are certainly elements that I think Prish is trying to incorporate into the plan to make it, you know, look a little more modern, but still traditional. But I think that's something we can certainly continue to look at.
Councillor Johns.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. I'm not totally pleased how we arrived at this point and going through the process that we've arrived at, but I can say that now that we have arrived here, I'm feeling positive about the direction of where this is going. Like when we look at the opportunity of what is in front of us as a council for what our responsibilities are to take it to a next step, we are in a housing crisis, and we now have a product that is in front of us in East Gwillimbury that we really haven't seen before. And so I think of that as an opportunity. I also think of, from a positive and positive direction to take, is that our library is right there. So we have existing services. We have the community center right there. Across the street, we have that commercial plaza right there. We are on a transit line right in front of the residential development. And so now that we have arrived here, I think it is incumbent upon us as council to see how we can ensure that there are steps being continue to be taken. And so I got to thinking about the challenges that we are having with allocation, and then I started thinking about where we're sitting with ICI, and then I was thinking about the fact that it is mixed use, so there must be an opportunity for the commercial side to be activated. And then I was thinking, okay, so if there's some allocation on the ICI to get activated, what kind of variances, or maybe variance isn't the right word. I know that the well is running dry on what we have, but surely I would like to see phase 1 and phase 2. To Councillor Carruthers' point, it is extremely disruptive to people in the area. If it's 100 units, sorry, I'm going on a bit. You were worried that you talked too long. Here's the thing. We don't have a capacity issue in East Gwillimbury. The fact is that there's probably like 3,500 units that are sitting out there unused. And then there's a buffer in the system. And so I think what's frustrating from us as a council perspective is that we want to see projects such as this move forward, but the fact is that we don't have a challenge with the capacity. We just have a challenge with the units. And so I guess what my question is, through you, Madam Mayor, to staff is that I would love to see us dig in to say, okay, we are saying we're down to the last, but there is ICI available, and is there 60 or 70 units available on a variance? Because we know we don't have a capacity issue. So what is it going to take for us as a council for us to decide to prioritize a project like this and move it forward? So I'm not sure who that is directed at, But I would like to see staff go back and say, yeah, we actually have 53 units, and then we can decide as a council to move it forward. But I just see this sitting here, and it just makes sense. And it cleans up the area, too.
Mr. Valchek?
Madam Mayor, I'm wondering, we have an upcoming workshop, if we stay on schedule with it, planned for February to talk about growth management. I'm just wondering if during that workshop, I mean, I can see whether Mr. Molinari has an answer today in terms of ICI and what is sort of coming down the pipe with the region's projections, but we could provide maybe a little bit of extra information at that February workshop about servicing, about allocation, about projected timing, and then it might sort of inform council in terms of what options or flexibility council has to consider different proposals and perhaps prioritize if that's the wish of council. But for today, we could probably, I'm wondering if we can confirm just what we have, Mr. Molinari, in terms of ICI and what the projected timing is for potential additional waves of allocation from the region.
Certainly, through you, Madam Chair. We're expecting in 2025, well, I guess in terms of what do we have left now, we have very little left right now, even on the ICI side. The good news is, though, in 2025, we're expecting another tranche of allocation to be provided. And once we actually switch over to the new YDSS expansion system, then the constraints around ICI will be removed. So that's not too far in the future. That's coming up this year in 2025. We also expect that there will be some additional allocation just on the res side as well in 2025. There's about 30,000 persons of capacity, 29,000, 30,000, somewhere in there. And that capacity will be shared amongst 4 municipalities. So we won't be getting all of that, but we may get, we'll be getting some of that, and we may not get all of it in 2025, but we'll start getting it in 2025. So I know that's a long answer, but the good news is, the takeaway from that is there's allocation coming in 2025 to do some of the projects that you're speaking of today.
Councillor Johns, go ahead, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thanks both the CEO and Mr. Molinari. I guess I am, of course, fine, like February is close. I think that like the opportunity to have clarity as we go in and we have a discussion in February, because like when I kept looking at that slide in preparation for this meeting and I was thinking about ICI and the small res, I was thinking to myself, well, if this phase 1 is like a 40 something, how much of it is commercial? So let's say it's like, and I'm obviously making it up, a value of like 10. So are we really talking about like 10 and 30? And I guess what my point is that it's so small. What are the opportunities for us as a council, recognizing that we're in a housing crisis and we finally have another product that we can deliver to people to sell? Where does that sit on a timeline from February and then moving forward? So that's just my thoughts behind it all. So thanks, Madam Mayor.
Sorry, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. I guess I've got one comment and one question. My first comment is, I understand that this would be something that we could support, given it's a variety of housing stock and something something that's diversified for us. That said, I think there's probably before when we had our reserve, we had what I'll call the beauty pageant of all sorts of really great, meaningful projects that are coming forward. This isn't the only one that's in our pipeline, and this isn't the only ICI or mixed-use building that has been proposed for us. So I would want to see that discussion take place as a whole, rather than in isolation like this conversation. And then my question, through you, Madam Mayor, is between both phases, how many units of allocation does this project need? It sounds to me like you're coming to us with a suggestion of a phasing approach in order to be able to tap into that pipeline and say, well, for phase 1 we only need X, but for phase 2 we need Y. What's that breakdown? What do you need?
Yeah, so through you, Madam Mayor, so the overall unit count is 103. There are 1 and 2 bedroom units and 3 bedroom units, which when you do the single detached equivalent numbers, actually brings the number down, I think, around 90.
So 90
So,
SDEs.
Approximately 90, yeah. So we were looking at, for the first phase, with the 40 back-to-back townhouses and 15 apartment units, that we needed about 42 units net of allocation, because there's 4 units on the site already. So I'm just doubling that to say about 90 to 95, something in that number, because the single detached equivalent brings the number down.
Thank you.
Councillor Lahey, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, through you, Madam Mayor. First, I want to thank you for listening to the feedback that both residents and councillors provided, and that I would like to acknowledge that there have been significant improvements, and that it's important always for the best outcomes of residents in our communities that we have that positive working relationship. So thank you very much for listening. And I wanted to ask the architect, Mr. Jain, if he could elaborate upon some of the environmentally friendly features of the building, as well as sustainability, and anything that you'd like to highlight in terms of, in addition to the increase in the green space that you've provided.
Sure, thank you for the question. The broadest response to that is the density that we're proposing. The back-to-back townhouse form is a dense product. It's an affordable product. It allows for the maximum amount of residential space while minimizing and also maximizing the amount of green space. So it's a very efficient product. The equivalent in terms of providing single-family homes would not be as dense. So density, it would be our first response. And further beyond that, at this point in the stage of the overall design, we haven't really gotten to the level of detail in terms of construction and construction materials. We did take a close look at the contextual materials that were used, so that's why we had referenced the materials in terms of stone and brick that we're using and their coloration. But the sustainability features, we haven't really taken a deep dive into those yet. So we will as we go through the construction and the construction drawings process.
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you very much. I look forward to hearing more details about that in terms of the materials, and if there is a way to have the best of both worlds, combining sustainability features as well as reflecting heritage, perhaps, in the materials that are chosen. Thank you very much.
Councillor Crone, I understand you have a question as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate that. Through you to our presenter, thank you very much for coming today and giving us this update. I think it's important. I appreciate the fact that we came at this, as I think Councillor Johns alluded to, we came at this from different angles, and we had some disagreement. We went to the tribunal, and you folks won, and that's the way it goes. But I do appreciate that you've made some improvements. I'm not sure the residents are going to be popping champagne anytime soon, but this shows some movement in the right direction. So I'm encouraged by that. The first question I have is, given that you would like to move ahead, and you are going to be setting up shop in this neighborhood, are you willing to take any more input and feedback from the local residents on how best to situate this development?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. I think, Councillor Crone, I haven't spoken to the owners to confirm that, but I think it would be foolish of me to disregard that comment. So I think obviously we would certainly be willing to continue the dialogue with members of the community. We do intend to be around. We have a second deputation later about another property in Holland Landing. So, we certainly see ourselves as longer-term members of the community, the Holland Landing development community. That other site is going to be much longer timeline than this one. So, I I think we'd be willing to continue that engagement with the public as required. I also wanted to point out, one of the owners came up to me and said that the 15-unit apartment building, they would be willing to do rentals, so I just wanted to point that out as well, so they don't give me trouble for not saying that, so.
Thank you, and both of those were the right answers, so I appreciate that. My last question is, maybe you could, and if you said it earlier and I missed it, forgive me, but I just want to be crystal clear. Councillor Foster was talking about parking. I just want to know what the breakdown between number of units and number of parking spaces will be, because parking is a big issue for us after development is built. We're the ones that are left on the hook answering the questions about parking. So I'm hoping you can share with us some of that.
Sure. Through you, Madam Mayor, I think Prisha's got the numbers specifically, but I don't think I'm far off. So we have 103 residential units, and the proposal is one parking space per unit. There's 24, I believe, visitor parking spaces, and then 3 or 4 parking spaces set aside for the commercial based on the ratio in the current bylaw, for a total of 132 spaces for the entire development. That's for 103 units, plus visitors, plus the commercial. The LSG folks and Prish and I are actually working on a number of developments with a similar product types in Aurora and a couple other municipalities as well. I know the typical, scenario you run into with, let's say, townhouse product, where you've got a one-car garage, one-car driveway, and then folks have to pave their, entire front lawns to park their second car because they use the garage. I guess what I want to stress here is the product type this is a different product type. It's not an apartment, but it basically, it is a condominium unit that is sold specifically with one parking space. There is no opportunity, to do what you might typically do on a ground-related product and go and pave your thing or wedge a car in, on an angle in front of your front door, that sort of thing. So what you do tend to get in developments like this is you buy your unit, there's one parking spot. There's not an opportunity to build yourself a second parking spot because of the condo regulations. And frankly, I can't ever see someone who would buy a unit in these buildings and then say, well, I'm going to park down the street and walk home every day or something like that. So it is a very specific product type, very similar to a condo apartment where, you buy one parking space with your unit, or you might choose to buy no parking spaces with your unit, like you're seeing more and more in Toronto and so on. So it is a different product type, and Councillor Crone, I understand where you're coming from. I think the visitor parking at 24 is quite high, frankly, compared to what we're seeing in a lot of other areas, which is down to 0.1 in a lot of cases, which means one parking space for visitors for every 10 units. Here, what you're at about 0.25 almost, where you got 24 visitor spaces for 100 units. So I don't think there's an oversupply of parking. I don't think there's an undersupply. I think it's kind of right in the middle. I think there is a bit of buffer there with the visitor spaces.
Thank you very much. Back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other questions at this time? Councillor Foster, could I ask you to move this? Be it resolved that the deputation made by P. Jain on behalf of Land Services Group regarding the development project known as Holland Park be received. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. We are now moving on to item E2. I've previously indicated that I have a declaration of interest and will pass the chair to Councillor Carruthers at this time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We're on E2, and we have a deputation from A. Sarang on behalf of Land Services Group, making a deputation to committee regarding the development project known as Riverview Hills. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. Again, I'm Nick Pileggi with Macaulay Show Me House, and not Amin Sarang. So, and I'm going to ask if the presentation could be put up again. Thank you. So on this one, we're here to speak to you today about the project that we're calling Riverview Hills. The property's at 18858 Second Concession in Holland Landing. If I could get the next slide, please. I already mentioned about who Land Services Group are previously. If I could go to the next slide. Thanks. Okay, so the property that we refer to as Riverview Hills is located at 18858 Second Concession. That site is just south of Mount Albert Road. And about 1.5 kilometers away from the GO station to the south at Green Lane. It's on the west side of Second Concession. It has easy access on that north-south road, Second Concession, both to Green Lane, the 404, et cetera. Again, we have a short video on this one. If I could ask the clerk to please run that up. Thank you. Thanks. While the presentation's coming back up, I forgot to mention why we wanted to present to council today. It's just to formally introduce this proposal. We have been in to meet with staff for a pre-submission consultation meeting. Our intention is to bring an official plan amendment application forward in the near future, likely in February. So if I could just go to the next slide, please. So this is the site plan that's part of the proposal. The overall development plan starts, I'll start at the east side, which is the Second Concession frontage, with the tallest buildings along Second Concession, and those have commercial uses at grade. Then basically there's a gradation of density as you go further west on the site, both to stacked townhouse and back-to-back townhouse units, street townhouses, and semi-detached units as you go further to the west. You can also see centrally located in this plan a significant park site, and then obviously along the wrapping the sort of back of the site and the northeast corner is the protection of a number of natural heritage features and their buffers, which wrap basically around the entirety of the development. And then at the north end of the site, the northeast corner of the site, there is a wetland there that again is being preserved and buffers provided. So again, at Second Concession, those are mixed-use buildings with commercial at grade, with a proposal of those being up to 8 stories in height. The centrally located units, north and south and just east of the park behind the 8-story buildings are 4-story stacked townhouses and back-to-back townhouses. And then the further back you get in the site, adjacent to the natural heritage area and left west of the park are typical street or condo townhouses and semi-detached units. The overall site is proposed, can accommodate, approximately 800 to 900 total units, and that depends again largely depends on the densities that you get out of the, whether you build 8-story units or slightly less, and that would depend on market. So there's a couple slides with some renderings that I'll turn to Persh again to take you through.
Thank you, Nick, Madam Mayor, and councillors. Our firm also has prepared master plans throughout the GTA. Most recently, we did the Celestica lands that's under construction. We did the revitalization of Lawrence Heights and also the Downsview Park. So we have a lot of experience in master planning. This particular site retains approximately 33% of the site is maintained as undeveloped. It consists of natural heritage areas, parkland, and stormwater ponds. So again, a third of the site is being preserved as it is, and then which includes new parkland, green space, and stormwater ponds. 75% of the units that are being proposed are low-rise, at-grade units, whereas the remaining 25% would be in the form of apartment or condominium along second concession. Our primary agenda here was to create a neighborhood, not just housing. We've put the park in a central location. We've put walkways and trails connecting to existing trails. There's a variety of product starting from second concession in the form of apartment or condominiums, and as you move from east to west, it steps down in scale from 8 to 7 to 4 to semis, and then down to parkland. So there's a variety of product here. There's a consideration of parkland. There are walkways, trails. A lot of these paths are leading to the park and connecting to the existing park. I think in a nutshell, that's what we were trying to do here, create a community as opposed to simply create housing.
So through you, Acting Mayor, in conclusion, as noted, this is a new file. This is the first time I think council will be seeing this. We are looking to submit an application for an official plan amendment to effectively approve the master plan, although at the official plan level, you don't really get to this level of detail. So we are going to be working with staff to move ahead, and eventually this will come back before council as part of a statutory public meeting and a public process. As Persh has gone through, the proposal does provide a varied cross-section of housing forms from high to low density. Again, it aligns well with the goal of providing a diversified housing stock and contributing to attainability. So again, we look forward to working with staff and council on this one, and appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Roy-DiClemente.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor, and I will note that our procedural bylaw does call for deputations to be 5 minutes, so I think we're almost at an hour, so I just wanted to note that. But as you're working through your planning process, I just wanted to note that you do have some southern neighbors. Obviously, it was at a very high level of detail, but it looked like it was a pretty dense southern property line, and I think you'll want to be mindful of, as you're building a neighborhood, that you already have neighbors. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
Thank you. Just wanted to mention very quickly, here I go about parking again. The parkland that you have in the center of the development looks to me like it could very well end up to be a soccer field or whatever it might be. I have an issue with some of these parks being built with no parking at all, and I think we've done it ourselves, which I have a problem with. But anyway, if that soccer field, let's say, is used 4 nights a week and there's 20 parents bringing 20 kids, where are they supposed to park? And if it's just on the side of the road, it's going to be chaos. So I don't know if there's some place you can work some parking in along there, but that's always a concern for me. Thanks.
Yep. Through you, Madam Chair, if I could just quickly, understood the comment. The park that's shown there is what's the right term, generous from legislative requirements, like 5% or 10%, which is the cap nowadays in the Planning Act. That is more than that. So, and I know we've shown a soccer field there. That was based on discussion we had with staff about a desire for some active play field. I don't really think a soccer field fits if you look at it. I mean, you need space on the sidelines and so on. So we certainly are looking to provide a well-placed park space as part of the development, and I think we could definitely work in some parking there. The other point is that park that's shown right now has 4 road frontages. So certainly something like lay-by parking along, you know, the one side of those streets could also be something that could be looked at. So just wanted to comment.
Thank you. Councillor Johns.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I think the toughest thing for me as a new councillor was understanding the official plan and how everything's laid out beforehand, and then we come here and we see these presentations about what the future of East Gwillimbury will look like, and I get it. Like, the thing is that it's just, I think it's hard to get my head around, and I'm sure the same thing is for residents as well. But the GO station's right there. The grocery store that we approved on the corner is right there going in. The OP has 20 stories at the corner there, and then, you know, seeing this at 8, I'm actually surprised that it's not higher, quite frankly, given that everything around it is higher. But I think that one of the things that my colleagues who has sat on council before myself is when talking about complete communities, and when I'm looking at that the frontage along Second Concession, the one floor being commercial. Are we building a complete community by doing that? Even though I recognize amenities are close with the GO station there and the grocery store going in, I'm just wondering if there's a greater opportunity to ensure that the needs of that specific community are met, or even beyond that, when we're thinking about that development.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm not sure.
I guess
was invited to comment.
Well, the comment
I'll-
is that, like, is there an opportunity, like you are presenting here today saying one floor is commercial, is there an opportunity to be working with you to make sure that we are meeting the needs of everyone in the community? Because,
Yeah.
and again, I'll throw out, there's 20 stories down the street. Are we adequately serving here?
So through you, Madam Chair, I mean, I know as we have internal discussions, you know, I think the proposal of 8 stories, mixed use, you know, I think that would be ideal to be able to deliver both high density with, you know, very viable retail. I think that's a challenge on a site like this, frankly, because the Green Lane secondary plan and the Green Lane area is really a high traffic area, and that's where you're going to get a lot of the commercial uses wanting to locate there. And I think commercial, frankly, will struggle on a site like this. But I think what we'd be looking for as part of an official plan amendment on this site for those lands along the frontage is a variety of uses, be it mid to high rise like we're showing right now, 8-story buildings with commercial at grade, or, you know, maybe more back-to-back or stack type product that's a little higher density but not quite, you know, low density, or the ability to do, frankly, a commercial development standalone. Because I do think, you know, when you look at the context here of 20-story buildings being built along, you know, the Green Lane corridor, and there's high density development there. There's mid-rise development along the east-west collector road that's coming in the future. How long into the future before we really get a market for 8-story buildings on a site like this? So I think it's a challenge. It's really long-term. That's why I said as part of the previous deputation that this site, you know, is certainly more long-term. But I think what you want to look at, especially along the Second Concession frontage right now, is flexibility, because you don't want to lock in that you're going to do 8-story buildings and then 5 years from now I have to come back and downzone that to get something else, or look at potentially a commercial development that could serve this area. But I do think commercial, you know, again, I'm just sort of talking based on my experience on sites like this, where I think it will be a challenge to deliver even mixed use. And maybe a commercial site standalone makes more sense than mixed use in the same building does.
Thank you. Councillor Lahey.
Thank you very much through you, Madam Acting Mayor. My question is with regard to accessibility. And we have a growing demographic in East Gwillimbury of seniors. And I know it's early days and very high level at this point, and you will obviously be following all the regulations and bylaws. But do you have plans to focus on providing units that are accessible?
So through you, Madam Acting Mayor, I think obviously the apartment buildings that are shown here would be elevator access and accessible. I think there is the back-to-back products or the townhouse products, they are challenging from that perspective. Sometimes you can provide options for elevators in those buildings. So that's certainly something we could look at in the future. But your typical back-to-back or stacked townhouse product unfortunately does include a lot of stairs, be it to the lower unit or the upper unit. But a lot of the product nowadays, you certainly can offer an option for an elevator in those units. So that's something we could look at.
Thank you. Councillor Crone.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to our presenter. Thank you for another informative presentation. And I just wanted to commend you. I think it's smart to start the first phase with the development with the taller buildings, and suppose doing it reverse, where people know what they're, at least when they go to buy in the second phase, they know what they're getting into, that there's some tall buildings. I will reiterate what Councillor Johns said. I'm actually surprised that you haven't asked for more height. And I'm sure this proposal, like many, will change before we reach its final form. But could you just clarify again the parking that you're going to have for the first phase? Is it going to be underground, or is it going to be on above ground? I'm not sure I caught that.
Sure, through you, Madam Acting Mayor. I don't know that all, this is the official plan level of detail, so it's a master plan. Based on the product that Prish has provided, the back-to-back or the stack type products, that would be very similar to what we presented to you on the previous application, probably one level of underground parking. And then for the 8-story buildings, you're probably into like a P2 level. But the majority of the parking for everything except for the townhouses or the semis, which were at the rear of the site, would be underground. The majority would be underground parking.
Okay, thank you for that. And I think I'll just follow up on what Councillor Roy-DiClemente said. Mentioned that they're neighbors. I would encourage you and your partners to take every opportunity to reach out to your neighbors and make sure that you can develop something that everyone is happy with, and it'll make I'm sure it'll make the process so much smoother for you. But thank you again for coming here and sharing that with you. It's exciting to see all of these people that want to invest in our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roy-DiClemente.
Thank you for recognizing me again. Having invested a great deal of time and energy and thought into our official plan, I'm kind of fond of it. Just wondering what it is that you need an official plan amendment for, and why you wouldn't just come to us with an application that actually meets the provisions of the official plan.
So again, through you, Madam Acting Mayor, the site here is largely, the developable portion of the site is largely designated low-density residential. I'm going to call that a holdover from, from the official plan in 2013. Sorry, it's all in my mind because I worked at the town in 2013. But so the low-density designation that was put in place then was a holdover from 2013. I think the context of the site here has changed significantly with the Green Lane secondary plan and the fact that second concession is now a 45-meter wide road that can obviously accommodate not only 8-story buildings, but if you were looking even at a Toronto example, if you're 45 meters wide, you could go 45 meters tall, which would be a 15-story building. So I think the context here is such that it can accommodate a little more density And I think, given the cost of land nowadays, what you're seeing a lot is that your typical 36-foot single-family detached or townhouse, that's not going to cut it any longer. So overall, what we would need to vary here is the heights for the mid-rise buildings along Second Concession, where I think the context has changed quite a bit. And then overall, just because of the amount of back-to-back or stacked townhouse units, the densities would have to tick up a little bit. And that's based on, again, I think, numbers that when you're looking at 2013 and we were looking at things like units per hectare as a density calculation versus today where you might look at FSI, floor space index as a density calculation. The overall here is about 0.5 or 0.6 FSI. It's not, medium density residential would be 1 FSI or slightly higher. So we're still, I think, in a low density category overall. I think it's just a lot of the policies in the secondary plan are 12 years old now.
Thank you for the answer. I guess I will comment that our official plan is a little newer than 2013, and it's been done since the secondary plan on Green Lane. So it was looked at, I guess,
Yeah.
is where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Understood. I think, I guess my comment would be that I don't know in the existing communities like this where there was already a designation that there was necessarily, I don't want to suggest that there wasn't thought put to it because I know, but I think generally speaking where you have lands that have been designated a certain way and there's not been any activity and there's not really an impetus to change it, then you would leave it as it is. And I think, our discussion in the future would be that the context is different than it was.
Thank you. I have mixed feelings about this. On the one hand, the access to the GO train with the multi-use trail means increased walkability. The talk about mixed use, again, increases the walkability. When we talk about affordability, I often will bring up that the cost of car ownership, if you're living someplace that each adult needs to have a car, that increases the cost of where you're living. So I see a lot of potential here if we can get mixed use in there. And yeah, people might go down to the superstore rather than going to a small store there. But there could be things like daycare and hairdressers and stuff like that. That means that each family only needs to maybe have one car, right? So I see lots of great things, great potential there. But then when you start talking about 8 stories, and I see the houses to the south right there that have enjoyed a rural environment, putting an 8-story building in their backyard, to me, doesn't sound fair. When I first came on council, one of the things that blew me away was the number of stranded communities that we were approving, that communities that aren't connected to anywhere else, that can't get to the library, the community center, something like that. So I see this as another stranded community. The difference being that there's this potential for the mixed use, so maybe not quite so stranded, but then I'm listening to you say, maybe we can't fill it, which puts me off of this. Yeah. Right? So to Councillor Roy-DiClemente's point, I think we have a really good official plan that we spent a lot of time on, and I don't like doing one-offs and looking at making changes. I would love to see how this connects to the rest of East Gwillimbury before making a site-specific change to the official plan. But like I said, lots of potential, hopefully great place for some purpose-built rental. And if we can get that retail and services in there to service that community, then I think that could be good. Again, though, the houses to the south, putting an 8-story building in their backyard, I don't think I could hold my nose and approve that, that's for sure. But let's wait and see when this comes back to us. If there's no other questions, I'm not seeing any, can I ask for a mover? Councillor Lahey, all those in favor of receipt? And that's carried. Thank you very much. And I will turn the chair back to you, Madam Mayor.
We are now at item F, and there are no presentations at this time. I will move to item G, and that is corporate services with Councillor Carruthers in the chair. There you go.
Thank you. I was wondering what you were saying. Okay. We have one item under G, and that's a joint presentation from Corporate Services and Fire and Emergency Services on the Fire and Emergency Services Review Final Update. So I'll turn that over to General Manager Gandhi.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of Council. Good afternoon. I'm here today with my colleagues from People and Belonging and Fire and Emergency Service to present the final update of the Fire and Emergency Service Review. The review, next slide, please. The review, which was conducted in 2023, was initiated due to challenges that were identified through the 2022 Employee Engagement Survey and the focus groups that followed that survey. And to address this, we engaged consultants Rob Horn and Penny Smiley, who have years of leadership between them, leadership experience, specifically in the emergency services sector. And we invited them to undertake a review of the Fire and Emergency Service to identify opportunities for improvement, the root causes of areas requiring improvement, and the priority areas of focus. Through meetings with FES staff, senior leadership, and members of council, Mr. Horn and Ms. Smiley examined organizational structure, communication, leadership, work environment, and culture. Next slide, please. The consultants were hired in August 2023, and the review results were presented to Council in November of 2023, along with recommendation to form a Fire and Emergency Service review working group and develop an action plan. In 2024, you'll recall there were significant changes in the leadership within Fire and Emergency Service, beginning with Larry Brassard, who was appointed as the interim fire chief, and that appointment was followed by the appointment of Steve Cook to the acting deputy fire chief position, the appointment of Corey Mainprice to the fire chief position, and Shauna Davidson to the other acting deputy fire chief role. Also throughout this time, the Fire and Emergency Service Working Group continued to meet and take action. Chief Mainprice will speak to those accomplishments in just a few minutes. I'd like to, on the next slide, acknowledge the individuals who comprise the FES Review Working Group. As you'll see, there are representation from full-time, paid on-call, suppression, non-suppression, senior leadership, and our People and Belonging team. And Fire Association President Captain Brad McGuckin is here today, and he's going to speak in a few minutes about the work that we did collaboratively. And before we get to the results, I like numbers to actually tell the story sometimes, and the next slide does exactly that. So here, the data that reflects this journey is evident in the numbers that we have here. As I mentioned earlier, the review was initiated in part from the results that was gathered through the 2022 Employee Engagement Survey. Staff recently presented the overall, along with our consultant, the overall results from the 2024 Staff Engagement Survey. And in each of those areas of evaluation, you'll see that there was significant change in response, specifically for Fire and Emergency Service. So these numbers were pulled out from the overarching numbers, and they're presented here to you today. I'll let the numbers speak for themselves. They range in anywhere from just around 10% increase to over 30% increase in the areas that are specified throughout this chart. And they reflect the enormous amount of work that has gone into supporting the department. So I'll end and invite Chief Mainprice to speak, and with that, I'll just say that these results, specifically for Fire and Emergency Service, reflect a compelling story about what happens when problems are surfaced and addressed. So I'll turn it over to Chief Mainprice, who will speak on the accomplishments.
Thanks, Mina.
Madam Mayor, members of council, thank you for the opportunity to provide some additional information related to the fire service review. Just prior to providing my update, I just want to say thank you to all the EG team members who have welcomed me over the last 8 months. I'm truly excited for the future of our organization, and I'm really enjoying working with my new colleagues. All the accomplishments and progress we're going to talk about in the next few slides, and we've been able to achieve over the last year, are really the result of a collaborative team effort that includes the leadership of our CAO, General Manager Gandhi, our friends at People and Belongings, our new senior management, previous Chief Broussard, and all of our staff members. This team has been committed to improving our organization throughout 2023 and 24, and they collectively deserve all the credit for our organizational success. So again, thank you to all the members of the team who were involved throughout this process. The Fire Service Review identified 24 specific opportunities that were grouped into 7 themes. I'm going to review the 7 themes over the next couple slides. They're detailed on that slide right there. Can I have the next slide, please? First theme was a commitment to our community. In early 2024, East Gwillimbury Fire reinstated our annual staff recognition night. This event was well received by all of our staff members, and plans are already underway to plan our 2025 event that's going to recognize all of the staff members who have retired and welcome all of our new team members and their families to East Gwillimbury Fire. Within vision and mission, in 2024, and under the leadership of Chief Broussard, staff participated in a collective sessions to establish and share the team values they felt were the most important to our organization. Those being integrity, compassion, respect, and service. And I can say from my time at EG Fire, these are the true values of our organization, and they reflect them every day in the work they do. We'll be further engaging our team in 2025 to update our vision and our mission prior to releasing our 2024 annual report. Our team has worked together to create a new logo to represent a modern fire service that still represents and respects the traditions of the service, and create an identity that our staff can be proud of. The new logos have been or are in the process of being added to all of our vehicles and our uniforms. Next slide, please. Within the theme of culture, earlier this year, we diversified our working locations, and now our team members are working out of all 3 EGFES fire locations. This change keeps our service better connected to the community and provides for a more effective leadership and communications within each station and all the staff assigned to it. Both the Deputy Chief and myself, we consistently attend significant emergency incidents to support and lead our staff during these challenging events, and to identify training opportunities to improve our service, and the health and safety of our staff. As part of the organizational change that was implemented in Q3 of 2024, we clarified job duties and the reporting structure of our deputies and our training and all of our paid-on-call staff. Career development reviews were implemented to provide feedback and career planning to support quality service and employee development. And now we're engaging our officers in the onboarding and recruit training programs to leverage their experience and build relationships between all of our new and existing team members. We've implemented de-escalation and psychological safety training to all of our staff to support them with their interpersonal relationships amongst the team, and to support them with the challenging incidents they experience during emergency situations. Next slide, please. Leading within a unionized environment. Our administration team has worked to establish positive relationships with all of our team members, including the association leadership. We meet on a regular basis, both formally and informally, to discussing outstanding or emerging issues and how we can work together to resolve these challenges. Collaboration. All of our administration team members believe and in our organization should be open and transparent, honest conversations, and we all share the same goals to work collectively together to improve our service and ultimately the service to our staff, and ultimately the service we provide to our community. Within the theme of communication, we're continuing to update all of our internal policies and procedures to ensure we operate as one unified fire service across all divisions and all stations and all employee groups. We're creating an annual report and an internal newsletter to share information internally and externally to promote the work of our team and the service we provide to our residents. Next slide, please. Making effective and sustained change. Starting with our current paid-on-call recruit class, we're moving our recruit training internally. We've established learning contracts with the OFM to deliver the firefighter certification programs in-house using our own staff. This allows us to monitor their progress and ensure they're meeting the standards that we're continuing to improve within our organization. Our new administration team shares a common vision of continuous improvement and the provision of excellent service. We will continue to challenge ourselves and our team to improve our service and support each other throughout this process. And I'd like to just take a moment to invite a review committee member, and East Gwillimbury Professional Firefighters Association, Brad McGukin, to provide some additional information regarding the changes at EGFES.
Madam Mayor, council members, thank you for having me here today. I'm not usually a public speaker. I did have written notes down, but I thought I'd just speak from my heart. That's what I do best, I find. I want to thank you and your staff and senior management for making the commitment to change and positive change to what we see today. We've had a lot of change. We have a lot of belief in what we have for the future within the fire department. We have to start off with Larry Bessard. He started off and selecting a great fire chief with Corey Main Prize and supporting our members that have been promoted. I know temporarily. I'm hoping they move further into their. I know he's giving me a bad look here, but and Shauna. But again, I just want to thank you because we've had these issues for many years, and finally somebody stood up and listened to us and took a risk and went in a different direction. And I firmly believe in that direction is in a positive direction. So thank you again. And I'm not going to say anything more than that, but thank you. That's all I can say. Thank you, Chief.
Yep, thanks, Brad. Going forward, next slide, please. Oh, one more. Thank you. Going forward, we have a number of initiatives planned to continue to improve the working relationships within our organization, improve the health and safety of our staff, and ultimately the service we provide our community. We'll be continuing to engage in collective agreement, good faith negotiations to hopefully mutually agree to a fair and reasonable collective agreement. We'll be updating our E&R bylaw to establish service levels and effective KPIs that measure our performance. We'll be updating our fire master plan to reflect those E&R bylaw updates. We'll be improving our internal and external communications with a new annual report, a new digital software system that will manage and measure all of our internal processes, improved training and development program that surveys our staff and gets information from them so we can better understand their needs and help to develop long-range training goals, updates to all of our policies and procedures to meet legislative and industry best practice, and a review of all of our new and existing programs to help support our staff. Again, thank you for the opportunity to provide the update, and I'm happy to answer any questions related to the update.
Thank you very much. We have a resolution to receive. Can I get a mover to receive? Councillor Lahey. Any questions from council? Councillor Johns?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. First, I want to recognize that this was a moment. So I'm just really proud of the team and like the collaboration. Better gets better, and that we're seeing that in action here in East Gwillimbury. So congratulations to everybody. My question relates to you said it really quickly, and I know we're in a time crunch. ENR bylaw is how I heard you say it. ENR bylaw. Yep. Okay, and so that is to establish service guidelines. Is that what that is?
Through Councillor Carruthers to Councillor Johns, so the establishing and regulating bylaw, just for clarity on the on the acronym, and yeah, establishes what services we provide, what fire services we provide, and to what level of service we provide them in the community.
So my direct question is that what is the expectation from a timeline perspective to bring that back to committee and council for discussion?
Through Chair Carruthers to Councillor Johns, I anticipate we'll be able to bring that draft report or a report with recommendations to council by the end of February or early March. We're gathering the data right now, and I have a number of them that we're reviewing to see what some comparable municipalities do, and we'll create a document for your review.
Thank you. Councillor Lahey, you had a question?
Yes, thank you very much through you, Madam Chair. So there were some statistics and percentages presented by the Director Gandhi, and they referred to improvements across the board. Some were over 33%, such as performance management and career development, but at the lower end, of the scale, there was organizational communication at 9%, and colleague cohesion had improved by 3%. So I wanted to target those lower end numbers because there is always room for improvement, although I want to recognize that there's been a tremendous shift in the overall mindset of the entire department. So congratulations to the entire team that contributed to those improvements. So I believe strongly that communication is the key to success always. And you mentioned a few things that you're doing to improve communication. You're going to start an internal newsletter, an external newsletter, these sorts of things. But what specific ways are you focusing on in the future to improve communication within the organization?
Great. Through Chair Carruthers to Councillor Lahey, thank you for the question. So we're looking at it from a number of different angles. We've just recently held our first ever officer meeting. I shouldn't say ever. I think they were told it's been about 10 years since we put all the officers together in the same room, and reviewed a number of different expectations, performance standards. So again, putting people in the same room, all the employee groups individually and then collectively, does a number of different things. It gets them all talking amongst themselves. It gets them a clear understanding of what we expect. So we're doing that. We did that with all of our paid on call at each station just before Christmas. So we're instituting an additional training night starting in March for all the staff once a month. So all of our staff between our paid on call, all stations, all divisions, once a month. We're selecting different topics. So we really feel that the more opportunities that we can take to put all of our staff in the same place, hearing from the organization, giving them all the opportunity to answer questions, hearing the same information from all of us, and staying consistent of how we apply that information will really improve the communications, respect, trust, honesty, accountability, all of those different things that make an organization very successful.
Thank you very much through you, Madam Chair. And if I may ask one more follow-up question. So there were surveys done that resulted in this data. And so what is the plan to evaluate it again? Is it going to be done on an annual basis or biannual basis? And what form would that take so that we can look forward to, I look forward to maybe next year seeing follow-up information to see again where there have been improvements?
Great. Through the Chair Carruthers, I'm just going to defer the question to General Manager Gonde from People. I think she has a better understanding of the overall strategy from People and Belongings and a number of initiatives related to staff engagement.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. So this employee engagement survey is typically done every 3 to 4 years within our municipality. When we conducted the survey in 2022, that was the foundation for the EGU Belong Employee Experience Strategy, as well as the initiatives that we undertook to address fire and emergency service specifically. And we really wanted to see how we were doing with all of those initiatives, and that's why we conducted sort of a midpoint analysis in 2024. So the next survey will be in a 2 years max. Usually it's done every 4 years. So we will look to conducting another survey within the next 2 years, and then we will proceed with additional surveys as we go along. So 4 years can be a little bit challenging because it's a long period of time. So we're kind of aiming in the 3 to 4 year period for the next set of surveys. But in this instance, there'll be a survey in probably 2027. 2027? I'm not, 2026, 2027, so I'm not doing my math.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chief, I'm so glad to hear some of the things that you come out with today. These are things that I think we've been struggling for a while to get some changes made. I think there's still lots of work to do, as you mentioned. I especially like to hear the consistent attendance of chief officers at some scenes. That was something that was sorely lacking for a number of years around here. I like to hear the story about your training, a lot of your recruit training becoming back in-house. Again, I know you have to go out to do your live fire and that type of thing to get the proper facilities, but we're definitely moving in the right direction. I love to hear the opportunity that you're going to start an annual report again. I can also tell you the bad side of an annual report. It was an awful drain on me when I had to do my section of the annual report. It was a lot of work. And then not long after, you might have the odd councillor ask you questions that was in the annual report, so you know they didn't read it. So that's up to us to make sure we read the annual report. But one thing I wanted to mention, and I'm not sure if this is a question for you or Ms. Gandhi, but so the title of what we're doing here today is a final update. I hope that that doesn't mean this is the finalization of the Fire and Emergency Services Working Group. I think that when communications is identified as a challenge, that maybe this is an opportunity to keep that group going, maybe not at the same frequency that you have been to get where we are now. But I think there's probably benefits from moving some of those people in and out of that community and getting some different thought processes. And I kind of have a soft spot for the paid-on-call. And I notice on that group, you've got one paid-on-call firefighter that's representing 60 people or thereabouts. That's a tough job. So maybe the opportunity to keep that Fire and Emergency Services Working Group going at some level, and like I say, moving some of those people out might be beneficial. I don't know whether you can comment on that or whether that's something that has been, thought about already, but I'll leave it at that.
Right. Through Chair Carruthers, I can make a comment if you like. So, I think we're still, I'm still pretty new in the organization, and one of the things that we're really trying to do is talk to people as often as we can. Look for the opportunities, chat with staff, chat with the leaders, the informal leaders, and to try and engage them at every opportunity, whether it's a formal working group or whether it's just stopping by the hall today to have a conversation or to be at a training session, to hear, listen, get feedback, provide feedback. So I think, whether it's formalized or informalized, I'm really confident that myself and the other members of our team are going to continue to engage staff at all levels. Some of it I think will certainly be formalized through some structured meetings and opportunities to do so. But I think there's even what I would consider even probably more importantly is just the amount of informal conversations that are going to continue to take place, because I think that's really where you start to establish trust and relationships and respect, and amongst all the people, and seeing us standing in the snow at firegrounds, getting wet, getting cold, effectively leading them in some significant operations at times. I think that's a really good step as well. So I think that establishes a lot within the group. So I'll certainly take your recommendation under some advice, and we'll continue to effectively engage all the staff to work through challenges and celebrate the success at the same time.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Crone.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to the Chief. Well done. This is definitely, signs of things going in the right direction. I know certainly the comments I hear from when I talk with your team, the conversations are markedly different than they were a few years ago. So they're much more positive, and I think people generally are in a better headspace. So most of the questions I was going to ask were already asked by my colleagues. So I'll the one question I that didn't get asked is out of the survey, there was one thing that jumped out at me was that the compensation results actually showed improvement. That never happens. In 20 years, I've never seen that happen. So I don't know what you're doing if you're bribing people to answer that, but that's well done. But was there anything in the survey that surprised you, that really caught you off guard? And if so, what was it?
Through Councillor Carruthers to Councillor Crone, thank you. I didn't anticipate that question. I don't think so. I think when I reviewed the survey results, and I also saw the results of the other employee groups in the city as well. So, I think there was, positive trend in a number of different areas, including ours. I think that there was some challenges identified previously. So, it's great to see some some positive results in an area. You know, when you try and do good things, you hope good things are going to happen. So I can't say I was surprised. You know, you always think you're doing better than you are, right? You know, when you see a 30, you want a 40. When you see a 20, you want a 30. So, but you know, none of it was overly shocking. Still, it identified some areas that we can still continue to improve on. But I think it's reflective of a good team of people doing a lot of good work. So thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll just make my comments. First of all, thank you, Chief. And thank you for reminding us you've only been here 8 months, because it feels like you've been here forever. You've fit in so well, so you've got another few months of saying you're new and then not allowed anymore.
Is that the threshold a year?
This is a very good news story, and thank you for presenting it, and I appreciate that. So we have a motion to receive, moved by Councillor Lahey. All those in favor, and that's carried. Thank you very much. I'll turn this back to Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're at item H, and that is Development Services with Councillor Roy-DiClemente in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have one item on our prepared agenda. It's Development Services Report DS 2025-01, which regards some street naming requests. May I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Carruthers.
Just one question.
Yes.
I would like to move the first and the second, but the middle recommendations to not approve, it's a double negative, and I don't think it's necessary to have a recommendation to not approve. So I don't think we need that one. I'd like to move just the first and the third, and if someone else thinks that's necessary, we can add it back.
Okay. Thank you. So at this moment, we have a motion on the table from Councillor Carruthers that we receive the report and that we approve the name for the event street as outlined in the report, and that we would be removing that third clause, and we can discuss that if you need us to. Ms. Jain, would you like to present this to us, please, and thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, if maybe perhaps I'll start with addressing that second recommendation. And the reason for including it in this manner is that it provides an opportunity for council to have a second look at the list of names when the determination is made in terms of the conformity to the policy. It is done so with the information provided by the individual that's making the suggestion or recommendation, and that can be limited in terms of context and historical contributions. So what this does in sharing the names that were submitted and then rejected, it allows for members of council to, if they have a different view or they have additional context, that so that's why it's included in that way, to provide an opportunity. Otherwise, the risk would be that council wouldn't see the names and would just be would just be hearing that they didn't meet the policy objectives. So I do understand that it might be confusing, but just wanted to explain that. So this is an annual report that is submitted. Per the street naming policy, individuals, members of council, members of staff can nominate names for to be considered for addition to the list of approved street names. But upon review of the ones that were submitted to date, they did not meet the policy criteria, with the exception of the proposed street name for the HALP event street. And so the one that is, or the street name that is proposed for consideration and approval by council is Minabimisiang, would be the street name that for the event space, or the street that is that will be constructed in front of the Health and Active Living Plaza. And our Manager of Planning is here to answer any questions about the process, should you have any. And I can certainly defer to my colleague, General Manager Gandhi, if there are any questions about how that particular name was selected and identified.
Thank you. Okay, members of committee, any questions or comments? Councillor Lahey, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair. So I would be interested in, so that for a fulsome understanding for the public who are going to be learning how to say the name, Mino Bimo Saying, and it mentioned in the report that there would be an educational component around it. So I'm wondering if you can just briefly share the meaning of it in the Anishinaabe language and the reason why it was selected.
Ms. Jain, did you want to pass that over to Ms. Gandhi, or do you want to take that
Yes,
one
through
on?
you, Madam Chair, I'll ask my colleague to speak to that.
Ms. Gandhi, please go ahead. It sounds like if we have to have a separate comm strategy for a name, that some context would be helpful.
Through you, Madam Chair. So the name, the meaning of the name is we are walking well and living in a good way. And just in terms of context, we contacted the Georgina Island First Nations and over a 2-month period engaged with the entire community through a survey to seek possible names. This is the one that came forward, and the name we believed to be very highly reflective of the spirit in which we are advancing the Health and Active Living Plaza. And we did also consult with the elders and the knowledge keepers, and so there was extensive consultation done with the Georgina Island First Nations, which I think just speaks to the nature of the relationship that we have developed with the First Nation community, and I'd like to think that it's significant actually over the last number of years. In terms of the question about promoting it, my understanding is that the event street was going to be named one name or another over a period of time, that it wasn't going to simply be Event Street, that we would name it something. And so the promotion of this would be no different than the promotion of any named street that we would have for that area. We would certainly speak to the phonetic spelling of the name and the pronunciation, but the communications associated with that would not be significantly incremental to any other communications that we would have for any other name that would be selected for the street.
Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I just had an idea on the spot here that I might want to put out there, and I don't know if we need to make a motion or not, but at the official opening of the Health and Active Living Plaza, there might be an opportunity to bring in the Indigenous elders who participated in the process of putting forward this name, and there would be an educational opportunity there to reach out and at that initial launch.
Thank you, Councillor Lahey. I believe staff had already contemplated that. Ms. Gandhi, is that the case?
Yes, and we have already had conversations about once this is recognized and council approves, that we would be reaching out to the Georgian Island First Nations to inform them and of course invite them to participate. There would be information about the name. There would be invitations to the community to participate and lead smudging ceremonies and drumming festivals. Like, we would certainly really do everything we could to reinforce the meaning and our commitment to supporting this decision to name the street in such a way.
So we would be doing something different than just a street naming?
Well, we would be doing a street name. The name would be named in some way, shape, or form. So there would be some ceremony, I would imagine, regardless of the name that is selected. We would just make sure that the event would be commensurate with the organization or the community with which we're working with to reach that name.
Thank you. Anyone else? So I have a motion on the floor from Councillor Carruthers that we receive the report and that we approve Mino Bimoseyang as the name of the Health and Active Living Plaza Event Street as outlined in the report. All those in favor? And that motion is carried. I'm in the chair, but I was wondering if my colleagues might be interested in a second resolution under this, and that is to give staff some direction to populate our street naming inventory with more Indigenous names, so that we don't have to have a one-off or spend 2 months with consultation, but that we actually have some of those names and concepts and ideas integrated into our inventory. And I wonder if someone would be happy to entertain that idea. Councillor Carruthers?
I'd be happy to move that.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Carruthers. Any conversation or discussion on the motion? The intent was heard. Thank you very much. All those in favor? And that motion carries as well. Thank you. Ms. Jain, do you have anything further under this area to raise?
Through you, Madam Chair, nothing further at this time.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll turn the chair back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're at item I, Engineering and Public Works. It was Councillor Lahey in the chair.
Thank you very much through you, Madam Chair. Madam Mayor, so we have one item under the Engineering and Public Works Department today. It is a blue bin transition update, but it's a very important and significant update. So can I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Foster. And that is moved. So General Manager Mike Molinari, would you please speak to this update?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Just as Council will recall, the province has mandated that the producers of blue box material will be taking over responsibility for both collection and processing of the materials. The town, including the N6 in the region, will be transitioning to move the collection and processing of blue box material to the producers on December 31st, 2025. After this transition date, the town will no longer collect blue box material. However, the producers have advised that their contractor for EG will continue to be GFL. That's the same as the town's current contractor, so the transition should generally appear seamless from the public's perspective. The N6 is in the process of negotiating a 2-year extension with GFL for waste collection with the blue box material removed from the contract to allow what this does is allow sufficient time to develop the next contract's RFP and incorporate some best practices post-transition, as well as provide sufficient time to acquire fleet. The province has outlined eligible blue box sources that the producers must collect from, which includes residential curbside collection, multi-residential buildings, retirement homes, schools, and some public spaces. Producers will not be responsible to collect from properties such as municipal facilities, ICI properties, daycares, businesses within a BIA, post-secondary institutions, etc. Although some of these properties, including some ICI properties, have had collection by the town for years, as they were on a curbside collection route and it was operationally efficient to collect from those properties, the producers will discontinue this service following the December 31, 2025 transition date. We estimate that this will impact a small number of businesses, approximately 65 businesses in total, and we're in the process of developing a communication plan to reach out to those ICI businesses so they can make alternate arrangements. We note also that waste collection was never provided to ICI across the town, nor was it intended to be processed by the region. So the town simply provided the service where it was set out, consistent with the residential curbside collection program and when it was operationally efficient to do so. So this approach, rightly or wrongly, was a green initiative and helped with the overall goal of maximizing diversion. So post-December 31, 2025, the town will no longer be collecting blue box material, and it would be operationally inefficient for the town to provide that service after that date. We do, however, intend to continue to provide waste and organics collection to those ICI businesses that we are currently collecting from, provided they continue to set out their waste consistent with our standard curbside collection program. With regards to getting some assistance with this contract prep, so an expert consultant's being retained by the N6 to develop the next waste RFP, including PICs with the public and presentations to council to receive feedback on potential waste collection options. And some of those options may include some changes to our basic collection program, including potentially a cart-based option. Those sorts of things will come back to council for some consultation and feedback. prior to implementing. So the N6 is proposing to share the cost of the consultant, with EG's share estimated to be between $15,000 and $25,000. We believe this provides good value for money on probably the largest contract that the town has. It's a $50 million plus contract overall, including EG and the N6. And the contract provides the necessary resources to implement this significant initiative efficiently and effectively. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, General Manager Molinari. There's a lot of moving parts here and some unknowns as well that I think I'd like to open it up to my fellow councillors. Do any councillors have questions with regard to the changes in this program? Councillor Crone, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few questions. This is probably the biggest change we've had to the Blue Box program in 30, 40 years, since its inception, really. So through you to Mr. Molinari, I have a few questions, so please indulge me. How much do you anticipate the town's going to save by the fact that we no longer need GFL to contract the service out?
Through you, Madam Chair. Roughly the Blue Box costs are about just under $400,000 annually. We do receive some funds back from that in the range of about $170,000. So it's about $225,000 that would not be expended starting in 2025. That actually would be rolled into our budget as potential savings. So we're not providing the service, and we wouldn't be incorporating that charge into our base budget.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that, Mr. Molinari. Through you, Madam Chair. I know that you mentioned this was a provincial initiative, and I actually support it. I think the idea of polluter pay is a sound one, and if they're picking up the tab, that's a good thing. You mentioned on, I think it was page 5 of your report, that the towns of Aurora and Newmarket have both chosen not to provide services to non-eligible properties after the transition. Do you know of any municipalities in the N6 that are going to continue to collect?
Through you, Madam Chair, they're not finalized yet, but the Township of King is considering it. But that is also being looked at as we speak.
Okay, and through you, Madam Chair, you didn't give a price tag, but you said in your second bullet point that the cost of servicing these non-eligible sources would be significant. Do you have any sense? Would you be able to lay your hands on a dollar figure that might help us?
Through you, Madam Chair. So, yeah, in that example with King, right now, the town's very good at providing a large operation when it's efficient to do so, and we can do so very cost effectively. For instance, right now, to provide full waste collection service, it costs roughly just about $110 per household townwide. The cost to deliver just blue bin in an inefficient way, which would have to be, if we were to collect for some of these places, would end up being approximately $700 a household. So just to provide a fraction of the waste collection is approximately 7 times the cost to deliver the entire program. So it's doable, but it's very inefficient, and the cost is reflective of that.
Okay, thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that, Mr. Molinari. That certainly puts a fine point on it. I understand now. We have about 65 places that will no longer be receiving this. Did I hear correctly that you've already reached out to them to let them know about this? Because if you have, usually if they're upset after they get off the phone with you, they're on the phone to one of us. So I was just wondering if that conversation has happened yet.
Through you, Madam Chair, no, we've not reached out to those
Okay.
property owners of yet, but we would be expecting to do so shortly.
Okay, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, I just have a couple more. I'm probably going to blow through my 5 minutes here. So, do we have any sense of who is there? I'd like to know a little bit more about who are the people being impacted about this. I'm not unsympathetic to their situation. We've been helping them for many, many years, rightly or wrongly. We've been doing it, and now, they're going to be left to their own devices. Are there home-based businesses? Are they? I hope they're not farms. Can you give us a little more detail on who the impacted might be?
Certainly, through you, Madam Chair. These would be typically properties that are along our curbside collection route currently. They would not be businesses that would be, for instance, in the Bales Drive area where it's, an industrial subdivision. It wouldn't be those sorts of areas. It would be an area where it could be a home-based business. It could be a business that runs out of a residential property. And that would typically be a business that would put out their waste, set out their waste in the same way that a residential property owner would set out their waste. So it would be in a blue box with a green bin and with a 2-bag limit, and it would just be treated similar to what we do with a residential property. And again, they would be along our already established route. It wouldn't be in an area that we weren't able to collect from, and it would be certainly in an area where our garbage truck was able to negotiate the road network.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Molinaire, and just Madam Chair, I promise this is my last comment. You're being very kind to me. I would be remiss if you're in the middle of negotiating a contract with GFL around the services they provide. It wouldn't be a discussion about garbage pickup if I didn't go back to King's Landing. Are there any opportunities for us to assist with King's Landing? I know Councillor Foster at one point had talked about a smaller garbage collection truck. I throw that out there for your consideration to see and pursue, investigate to see if there's something that can be done for these folks. I still hear from them, so I think it's important to keep that on the radar. Thank you, Madam Chair. I am done.
Through you, Madam Chair. We have been in discussions with King's Landing as well in terms of finding a good solution for that particular site. The reality is that we're not changing our waste collection vehicle. It's the same waste collection vehicle. It's just they may be changing how they collect. So instead of picking up, post 2020, December 31st, 2025, instead of collecting blue box material, it may be a combined truck with yard waste and green bin material, and that may be how that they use that other side of the truck. So if we were purchasing different vehicles, that may change the reason why or our ability to go into some of these other places, but the reality is the truck's staying the same, and the truck is the problem as to why we're not able to collect in those areas where the truck can't negotiate. So I hope that helps, but I do understand your point, and we will do what we can to assist the King's Landing folks in similar areas.
Thank you very much, General Manager Molinaire. Are there any other questions that my fellow councillors would like to ask? Councillor Johns, I saw your hand first. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just want to make one quick call out. I previously declared a conflict of interest as it related to King's Landing. It was not on this item. I just want to make crystal clear that when it came up here, I was not part of any discussion on that. So, and if it does come up again, I will step back from the conversation. My comment is I'm very supportive and being a champion of small business. I was a bit concerned when hearing some numbers thrown around about the cost of things going forward, and I just wanted to, of the cost implications if it was to be supported moving forward on those 65. I just want to delineate very clearly I would not be supporting going back and charging these small businesses, these 65 small businesses, for the fact that they've been receiving a benefit because of the efficiency over these last 10 years and the benefits that they received over the decades. I will stand in front of it that we should not be going back and charging them for the services. I mean, moving forward, the province has made this decision, and obviously the businesses will be conducting themselves moving forward as we explore, but looking back in time is not something that I would support. And I think we need to be doing everything we can to support these small businesses, and looking back is just not the way that I want to move forward.
Actually, I would like to ask General Manager Molinari to clarify and follow up with the comments that were just made, because it's my understanding that that it will be up to those small businesses in the future to take care of their own garbage, but there's no, I also want to make it clear that we will not, it's not like we're going to be reducing their taxes, or, because there already been some confusion in the community that if we are taking away services, but we aren't actually taking away services. We have been providing those services for their benefit. Is that correct, General Manager Mullen?
Through you, Madam Chair. So I guess just to be clear, we are the province is taking over the collection of a blue box material. So that after December 31st, 2025, the town will not be collecting blue box material any longer. It will not be part of our waste collection stream. It will be collected by the producers and separate and apart from the town. So it will be removed from our budget going forward for that component of the waste collection through the budget process. The producers will be collecting blue box material throughout the town according to their mandate from eligible sources as they see eligible sources to be, and the town will, in the same way that we're going to have to find someone to collect our blue box material, they will also have to, some of those places will also have to find their own contractor to pick up their blue box material if they are no longer an eligible source. So, and as I mentioned, the cost, that there will be some savings associated with that, and those savings will be translated into our 2026 budget with a reduction to accommodate the fact that we're not picking up that recycling anymore. Now, you know, there are going to be negotiations with GFL with regards to amending that contract. So there's going to be some discussions with them. There may be some pluses in terms of that contract to deal with a loss of revenue, or if they can't continue to collect as efficiently as they once did because of the trucks. But that will be something that we'll deal with GFL. So there may be a slight increase to accommodate those negotiations, but there will be some form of reduction as a result of no longer collecting the blue box material. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, General Manager Molinari. So I saw Councillor Roy-DiClemente and then Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess when we reach out to these 65 businesses, there's a couple of things that I think that we need to be clear about. And firstly is that this is a provincial piece of legislation, and that the province has changed the way that waste is collected. And so while we have provided a service to them in the past, that we are by law not allowed to continue to do that service. And so they are still going to continue to receive garbage and green bin collection, correct? So this is one of 3 streams that they are going to have to figure out how to manage as a commercial enterprise. And I think if we treat all ICI locations equally, then that's actually the fairest way of approaching this. And obviously, you know, we haven't communicated because, as Councillor Crone said, our phone hasn't begun to ring. I think if we understand what's happening, then we're able to also explain that to those businesses when they call us to understand it better. So from my perspective, you know, we've been doing something great for them, and unfortunately that has come to an end because of provincial legislation. It's not our decision. It's been taken out of our hands. I'm looking forward to seeing the new waste contract extension, and hopefully we'll see some savings there. I'm hearing that there are some challenges in the labor market and so on. So we may not realize the same sorts of savings as we might be in our current contract. So I'm just looking, good luck with the negotiations, I guess is what I'm going to say. And I'm also looking forward to that consulting process as we go forward for the next round of contracts. I know we've had quite a few residents who've reached out to us inquiring about having a cart-based program rather than just the bin process. So that discussion, I think, is one that's worthwhile having. So I look forward to that. But I think the communication strategy for those 65 locations is the important headline here. Thank you.
Before I ask for Councillor Carruthers' questions, I'm just wondering if at this juncture it would be appropriate for General Manager Molinaro, because Councillor Roy-DiClemente mentioned carts. Could you elaborate a little bit more about the carts, their design? My understanding is they'll be more like the green bin with a lid and a handle, but who will be paying for the carts and supplying the carts to residents?
Through you, Madam Chair. So yeah, lots of questions that still actually need to be answered. So the one thing that we do want to do is include carts in the mix for consideration for the next waste collection contract. Typically, how that's included, it could be done a number of ways, but typically how that would be done would be to either supply the residents with that, the municipality pays for that and supplies them, or preferably to put it into the contract whereby the contractor would be responsible to supply that, and they would recover their costs over the term of the contract for that bin. So there's a number of ways of rolling that out. Those sorts of details will be determined through the RFP process, which is why we want to have a good consultant on board to kind of help us put that together. And in terms of what does the cart system look like? Well, it's an oversized. I don't know if you've seen. City of Toronto uses a cart-based system, and it's like an oversized green bin that would be used for the waste stream. There would be another cart that would be used for the green bin, and both of them have apertures or areas on them that allows a mechanical lift from the truck to be able to lift them and deposit the material into the truck without needing a person to actually do that by hand. So the carts for instance, our green bin would not be suitable for that type of collection because it doesn't have the right configuration to be able to allow the truck to pick it up and dispose of the contents. So it would require that decision would mean all of the green bins that we have would no longer be useful or able to be used in EG. There'd have to be new carts supplied for green bin and for waste, but those carts would be used for the next term of the next contract, which would likely be another 8 to 10 years. So we'd be getting good utility out of them either way.
Thank you. And so, Councillor Carruthers, you have a question?
I do. I want to follow up on something earlier, but I kept getting preempted, so I'll try and go back. First of all, love the pun about rolling out a cart program. So I just wanted to reinforce that since this is a provincial legislation, this is not unique to EG. How are other municipalities handling it? Or is everyone handling it similar to us? And I just don't want to be caught off guard where we find out a neighboring municipality is doing something different.
Through Madam Chair, every municipality is going to do it slightly different. I think the feedback that we've received from council today is similar to what we were planning on doing in terms of our communication strategy. This is a provincial initiative. It's not in the towns. The town didn't dream this up. This isn't part of something that we wanted to do. This is something that's been in the works for a long time, that the province is finally determined that they're going to take over this responsibility and how they're going to do it. The biggest challenge with this has really been how to coordinate those two, how to coordinate that change. And you know, we have, along with the region and the N6, we've chosen to transition later on in the process to see how others have done it, and we'll use that experience through all of our communications and in order to help us put together our next contract, so that we learn from some of their pitfalls and use some of the things that they did well, and put all that together and hopefully have as good a contract that we can put together through that RFP process.
And that's very wise, and I'm glad that we're doing that. Can you make sure that any communications that go out to the small businesses, that council's copied on it? Because to Councillor Crone's point, our phones will ring and they'll say, this letter says X, Y, Z, and if we don't have a copy of that letter, it makes it difficult to respond, as well as any key talking points that we might need to be aware of. Thank you.
Through Madam Mayor, certainly we can do that. Yeah.
Any further questions from any members of council? I have two last questions. We're going to use our negotiating power and leverage do it collectively with other members of the N6. Is that correct? And because it's such a large contract, over $50 million, I imagine the consultant fee might be fairly hefty. So what portion of the consultant fee will East Gwillimbury be paying if we're negotiating with other areas that have a more greater population, et cetera?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, right now, those sorts of details are still being determined, but we estimate our share to be somewhere in the order of $15,000 to $25,000 for that particular consultant assignment, and it would typically be, that would sort of what we estimate our share to be. This contract is going to be another N6 contract, so it'll be one contract that goes out and gets divided amongst the N6 partners.
Okay, my last question is, so the municipality has to sort out its own recycling now. So, and I know that we mentioned earlier that there'll be some savings from this program, but how is the municipality of East Gwillimbury going to go about finding the right contractor to pick up our recycling?
Through you, Madam Chair, well, we'll go out to the marketplace and we'll see what's available. It's a different type of contract in that it's not town-wide. It's not, so it'll be just a service that would come in and collect from us, and it would do that at its own efficiency, and its cost will be dependent on how efficiently it can collect from us. So there's we're kind of in the same situation as some of those other businesses in terms of having to go find somebody who can provide us with that service. Some unknowns just in terms of where are those, where's the facility going to be located where we are to drop off, or where that contractor will drop off. It's recycling. Those sorts of things are still being determined as we speak. So, but there are lots of contractors out there who can provide this service for us and others in the town as needed.
Thank you very much. So lots of information to come from the department in the future, no doubt. And I'm sure you'll keep us up to date as the negotiations progress, et cetera. So seeing no other further questions, I have Councillor Foster has moved this report. Be it resolved that Engineering and Public Works Report EPW 2025-01 dated January 21st, 2025, entitled Blue Bin Transition Update be received, and that staff coordinate communications with the producers to inform the public and the non-eligible sources of the transition date of December 31st, 2025 to full producer responsibility and the discontinuation of curbside collection of recycling from non-eligible sources. I'd like to take a vote. Everyone in favor? And that has passed. Thank you. Back to you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lahey. Are there any questions from council under items J through N? Excuse me. Go ahead, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I was curious about the topic of the upcoming council workshop on February 11th.
Item, oh, that's, there's nothing under, okay. And other business upcoming in our council workshop, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Madam Mayor, with respect to the upcoming workshop, in discussions with the senior management team at this time, there's two topics identified for that date. The first one, as our CEO alluded to earlier, would be the growth management. And the second topic that has been identified at this time is the naming rights and sponsorship.
Thank you. Any questions? I'm just moving along to our agenda, item P, and moved by Councillor.
Councillor John's happy to.
Thank you. Be it resolved that the meeting of Committee of Whole Council adjourn at 4:11 p.m. All those in favor? And that's carried. I suggest we take a 10 to 15 minute break before proceeding with the special council meeting. Does that work for everyone? I'm seeing a yes, so with that we'll take a, let's say 4:30. How's that?